always just run back from work every
Yep,
Wednesday, skipping to work, knowing I've got to have a chat with a sack.
I do.
Do you?
I ignore my girlfriend. I ignore everybody just to come talk to you.
Yay! So, as usual, we've got some Wisdom Wednesday questions as per usual. So, if any of the guys in the chat wants to throw any questions our way, we'll answer them. But today's hot, massive topic is the change in cards. We've had some erratas, and we had a big chat about this last week, didn't we?
We did.
And I edited out all of that because we had this huge chat about what we think they're going to do, how they think they're going to do it, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to edit all this Friday, and I sort of gave a little nudge to Jacob saying, is this going to be out soon? He said, how soon is soon? I said, I'm thinking of doing this Friday, and he went, okay. And then the errata came out Friday. So I was like, right, okay. So
And I think we were like wrong on every single account.
well, no, we weren't. We weren't wrong about the snail, were we?
No, we were. I think we all thought that they were going to raise the cost of the snail.
I didn't. I thought I was. I actually suggested that it should replace the word start to end. I did say that that's what it should do. We could replace that, although I think that when I said that, I was hoping that he would be a guy would come down like at some. I guess it would have been too complicated to try and figure that out. It was more of the still you draw your cards and it still was the first card that came down. But it was after rotations basically. But I presume that was too difficult to get right. So to replace the word start at end instead of start would mean that at the end of your turn it comes down. So I did expect, I did suggest that. I have no idea if it's going to work and whether he would do that, but I did say that. I didn't expect his point cost to go up, and he didn't.
Okay.
I didn't think his point cost would go up.
So why don't we go over each card and then see how we feel now that the changes have been since Friday and people have gotten to play a little bit and get their reactions.
I believe that's a really good idea. So since I've already got it
thank
up, since we've got I've got Slimix up here already. We'll start with him.
Okay.
Since we always start with him, so his point cost hasn't changed. It's just replaced the word end instead of start, and it's drastically changed what he does. For the better, actually, I think. Now, how do you feel he fits in?
I think it was a subtle change, but it was a very big impact, right? So it's you definitely notice the difference between getting it from the beginning of the turn until the end of the turn, right? So in the beginning of the turn, it would come out and it would already be spun one forward.
Yes.
So like, for example, most people got Skyfires, which usually is a blank 1/2, but when you bring him out, he would be a blank 1/2, and your opponent only has one turn to deal with him before you start drawing cards.
Yeah. And he was the biggest thing since sliced bread, basically.
Pretty much. And now that he gets a guy at the end of your turn, your opponent has more than one turn to deal with it. And it's probably not ideal to get Skyfires anymore just because it's not really giving you much of an advantage like it was if when you got him in the beginning of the turn.
Yeah.
So I like the change. Like I said, I think it was a subtle change, but it was a necessary change. I think that it definitely made a big impact. And as we'll talk about later, it doesn't seem like with the change that anybody's come up with anything broken, right? It doesn't look like he's being taken advantage of anymore. He seems pretty balanced now, so I like the change.
So do I. I think you summarised that quite well. It turns him into a nice little quick quester as well, because if you can play an ability off him and then you can then chuck down something like Transmogrifying Flamer or the Loathsome Plague Bearers, which is Loathsome Plague Bearers is a very decent card to roll with if you get to help him quest, as well as the Resilient Plague Bearers. And I think the Resilient Plague Bearers are probably a decent one to start off with if you're going to roll with him. If your health count is on a bit of a lower side, I suppose. You know, if it's not the 35, it's like 33 or something, you can just chuck him down and then you're on 35.
Yeah, he's actually become a very efficient quester because really you just need one card to kind of quest all his corners, right?
Yeah.
And he might take a little bit, but it's a one card investment, really. Well, I mean, I guess technically it's two, but you're
three. No, two, I suppose, because normally when you play a card, we base everything off drawing the card is an action, playing the card is an action. So that's two actions most of the time.
Right.
To get that down. With him, it's effectively it's two because you play an action to do the ability. Then he will do his thing to get a guy down. You leave it, and then your second action is to put a guy down. So when you really think about I think we were both going to say when you really think about it, is actually one of the most efficient questers in the game.
Yeah.
If left
So
alone.
he's still really good. He's still 6 cost. He still gives you 2 health. He's still a demon, so you can play Demonic Fury.
Yep.
And it only costs you 2 cards to quest him. So
it's decent. I mean, and that's if no one deals with it, right? But we're not.
Right.
We're not in that world. We're not in that world.
No one's gonna have removal.
No, we're not in that world where removal is not a thing. We'll go on, I suppose, with a little like that. But I think the key word is Arkan. Arkan and his golden card, Feel the Gravetide. I mean, it's a little bit unrealistic, but hey, if you leave it, it's one of the most efficient questers in the game. So that's him. I think he's really good. The next guy I think we might as well talk about, since we're on the chaos, is old Scar Daddy himself. 11-point increase. He was originally 9.
Buddy Scarbrand.
Oh yeah. So 11,
always comes back to Scarbrand
as usual. Now, another errata to him is he was originally original was 9 points, 1 health, and it said while you're at 15 or health or below, your damage is increased by 3. Then they changed it to 10. And it was still 9 points with 1 health. Now they changed it, so he's now got 11 points with 1 health. I think I'll kick off with what I think with him. I think his 11 points was. I think a lot of people still thought he was still going to be the most silliest thing since sliced bread. Still, I personally felt that his 11 points was spot on. Maybe I could probably say that if he had any more, I think it would. I don't think it would do too much. I think I kept thinking to myself, he should probably be a 13. Probably make things a little bit awkward because Archaon and Rotigus are on 13, but 11's still fine. I think 11's done a lot more to him than people think.
I agree.
Go on.
Oh no! If you got something else,
apart from no. No. Go on. You say your point.
Okay. So yeah, pretty much what you were saying. I think 11 did more to him than I think people realize. However, how can I say this? He's still Scarbrand. Like, yeah, 11, I guess, sort of hurts him a bit, but you can still pair him up with 2 chieftains. You can still pair him up with like Bloodmaster for another demon. It's not like the deck is dead. He's still Scarbrand. He still has like the best ability in the game, or passive at least in the game. One of them at least.
One of them, yeah.
So I think if they really wanted to do something, I don't know if raising him to 11 was the answer. Like, I don't mind the change. I don't really think it hurts him too much. Um, I just don't know if raising his cost to 11 was what I would have done if
Mm,
you were trying to hurt Scarbrand.
okay.
M- but yeah, I mean, overall, the change is fine. I don't think it really hinders him too much. He still does Scarbrand things.
Yeah. Now, this is the thing that I think that is I think what they wanted to do is they want to have you need to have the aggro deck, right? Something that just punches you in the face continuously. And in every card game there's something that is just outright aggression. And Scarbrand being the big nasty man of Khorne, I think they wanted to keep that aggression there, but they needed to figure out how do being aggressive equals you will burn out. If you just keep going, you will eventually just you can't you got to balance your cards and aggression quite properly. And I think the
Hmm.
fact that he raised his thing to 11, um it's turned a lot of cards into the second you want to start putting in stuff to give you turns, well, in terms of give you card draw, it then starts to become a bit of a, but what do I take out to make that happen? And a lot of that leans on wizards, and wizards are in that weird, and it's in that weird state of, do you put a wizard in to put in the card draw and then potentially never see that card draw? And then you've got a champion on the side that's not doing anything anymore, and you've now got and you've lost some of the cards to keep that aggression going. Or you keep it all aggressive and throw cards down, and it's basically put a card down, draw a card, put a card down, draw a card, and it's fine. And that's how that works. But I think there has been a lot of cards in set 3 now that has basically gone, doing that is not good enough anymore to like, I think you could pull it out the bag and but I feel like it's a bit more, I think you're a bit lucky pulling it out the bag now. I think there's some people that can control that reasonably well, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, definitely.
So I just don't think he that, and plus as well, Chaos is in a bit of a massive, like, it's in a massive point at the minute where everyone is really gunning to make sure they don't work. And it's fine because they've been such a huge target for a long time now that it doesn't, I don't, I think Scarbrand's one of those ones that I honestly think people should just put him, like, the best way to play him now is to just ignore him now. Just don't do it. Don't play him. I think things have changed a bit now, and then there'll be newer decks coming out that will beat these popular decks that are very good against him, and then he will just come back and go, oh, what's this? Is everyone looking a little bit less geared up against me? Well, I'm back, and people are going to go, oh Christ, I can't deal with that. And you're like, no, the guy that you're beating can deal with me.
Hmm.
A bit of a rock
I
paper
think,
scissors.
yeah, and that's always a good for a meta when you have like a rock paper scissors. You don't want just one deck dominating the format.
No.
See, and I think what the issue is that, so I started playing during season 2,
Hmm.
and that's when Scarbrand was like literally, it was like the Dark Ages. It was just Scarbrand
And Gordrak.
and Gordrak, but
Hmm.
Scarbrand was pre-nerf and he was just running rampant.
Yeah, it was insane.
And ever since I started playing in season 2, it's literally been Scarbrand for the most part. That's been the most popular deck. That's been the most consistent deck. And
Maybe I.
then they came out.
Oh,
Yeah, then they came out with the nerf,
hmm.
and everyone thought he was dead. Nope, not dead. Still alive and kicking.
Yeah.
And then they came out with Savagery, and you saw these cards that are like, oh man, they're really trying to hammer down Scarbrand. Oh, Scarbrand's dead. Nope, still better than ever.
Well, no, he did. Yeah, it
So
wasn't so much him. It was very much like the snail was just like, "Hey, I heard
right.
that you were having a tough time. Should we accelerate this madness?" He's like, "Well, I don't know.
So
I don't think people really worked out the tough time, but yeah, sure, let's accelerate this madness."
so I think my point is I'm very hesitant to say that Scarbrand is going away
I
just because he's always around, and I think someone's always gonna find a deck to just use him and make him amazing.
But 11
So
points, it
I
doesn't.
know,
11 points doesn't give you a lot, and
I know.
the thing is if it's always been like I said, if Scarbrand is on his own, if you just had him and went, well, here he is, he's there to be a giant bully for anyone who wants to try it, right? And there's a lot of decks that can go, well, I can deal with one guy really, really well. So if it's just you, then I'll just punish you really hard. And then it's like, well, he's not worth his 11 points anymore. It's like, no, he's not. So now what's the rest of you guys going to do? You know, and is it worth putting 11 points of a guy in if he's just going to be focused on so hard? Do you know what I mean? And it was always the thing that made Chaos work so well was because you spread the problem everywhere, and it was just like, I can't deal with all the problems. And that's what Scarbrand with all the Blood Reaver Chieftains do. Admittedly, they do spread the problem out. But what happens is that you do start to run out of steam a bit more now compared to what some other decks can pull out. Do you know what I mean? And I think you can easily get a win out of him. You know, he's not dead. He's definitely not dead. It's basically him and his Blood Reaver Chieftain crew are we are the aggro deck. And if you've got a deck that goes, well, I'm pretty good against this aggro deck that's mainly focused around using abilities to end the game, because it's not the units that's going to end you the game, is it? It's always going to be the abilities, and Scarbrand amplifies that. So if you've got something that goes, like, just basically, if you just slapped a Lord Executioner down in front of him, you know, I think I even played a friend of mine that had two Lord Executioners. One was just in the sideboard for a pitch battle. And the first game was, well, this is going to be annoying and tough, but we'll do it. I've got my two demons. I pulled out a win. And in the next game, he goes, well, here's two Lord Executioners. And it's now suddenly looking at, oh my god, Demonic Fury is the first card that is immediately dead. Because there's no value in 3 damage for 2 damage to me. And then Scarbrand is just done in immediately. Just immediately done in. There's no increase, whatever you want. It's still 3. So so now my ability damage win is out of the window.
Right.
And you only had to sideboard that in. You can just go, my main deck isn't that, but I'll sideboard that in when it comes to it. And you're just now like, well, you're hammered pretty hard.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love for Scarbrand to be out of the meta simply because Scarbrand stops so many decks from being able to be played. Just on the fact that, well, think about this for a second. So, just based off the fact that you need to be able to have a deck that can burst somebody from 12 below, right? Because if you're staring Scarbrand in the face and you're at 20 health and you can't get him and you can't kill him below 12 health in one turn, you know damn well that if he has a Demonic Fury, Furious Strike, and he flips over a Blessing, you're gonna die.
Okay, so Gordrak can do that.
Gordrak can, but he doesn't have an ability staring you in the face saying you have to kill me now or you're going to lose.
Well, like, he could just rally and cry and spin.
Well, right, he could, but he can do that at any point. He doesn't have a specific like health total where you need to be able to do this or you're going to lose. Like, Gordrak can play Rallying Cry, but you don't know what's in his hand, right? You don't know. Having just Scarbrand across from you, you have to say to yourself, okay, I can't put him below a certain point or I'm probably going to lose. Like with you know what I'm saying?
Well, there's also but I think as well, like when I think of Gordrak, I'm thinking, okay, well he can spin to win, and he can quest reasonably fast with as well, with 2 Riptooths, and there is the Blessing Expanse of Gur as well. So the Expanse
Right.
of Gur can turn that off if that's your win condition, and Firebelly, he can quest really well, and he can pump out some pretty big damage if push comes to shove. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. But
Arc,
so
and then Arkan goes, your thing doesn't work anymore. So I just don't think it's as clear. I think he's there, but it's just, and he will always
well,
be the. I think he's a noob stomper at this point.
he might be, but my point is like, so you know, like the aspect deck that I was working on,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And you're like, oh man, it's a really good deck. It heals a lot. It locks down a lane. It can grind your opponent out. It's hard to grind a Scarbrand out because if I can't do 10 damage in one turn and you're just leaving Scarbrand at 5,
Mm,
now I'm in trouble
mm.
because I don't have that burst potential. So yeah, like I said, yeah, I understand that like Gordrak can just kill you in a turn. But like with Gordrak, you can kind of play around like, okay, well, if I lock out this lane with Gordrak and I do this and I do this, maybe I can stop him from being able to do this, or being able to rally and cry and being able to kill me in one turn. There's nothing that stops Scarbrand from saying, oh, once I'm below 10, now I can just play abilities and kill you. Like,
Yeah,
unless you're
exactly.
playing Stormcast, and
Or
they play like
death.
a Thunder Concussor in front of you or Death. But all right, but I'm just saying, like, it's very hard for burst or for non-burst decks to be able to compete in a Scarbrand meta
I
because they
yeah.
don't have the burst to kill below 10, is what I'm saying.
I think what's come out of this a little bit, and it showed a little bit more that there's 2 ways that you're going to win a game, and I think the 2 ways you're going to win a game is that you can do huge burst damage with abilities, or you can do, or your winning move is units. They're your 2 deck styles. Now I know that Scarbrand does incorporate units into his build, but realistically, your main win is to pop off a Furious Strike that's going to trigger the blessing, and it's just like, okay, 5 damage leads to whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's I just honestly think now with the way Death is going, I think that's truly a one huge counter for him just by having a Lord Executioner in there. And I was just running around with it, and there was not to sort of downplay what people are doing, but there was guys I was just really hammering with this deck really hard. And this guy just sort of one of the guys just went, I'll just simply just put 2 Lord Executioners in. I just sideboard, but I've already got one, and I've made him work. I'll just sideboard the other one in because otherwise I'll probably die. And that was just it. I was just like, well, I can't throw this out anymore. Do you know what I mean? And I just don't
Yeah.
have that same tempo anymore. I don't. It's just weird. I just don't have that same tempo anymore. Not. It feels very much like set 2. Like it feels very very much like it's set 2. But if it wasn't for some certain cards that came out in this latest set, I think he would still dominate 100%. I think he would dominate it. But I think there's just some cards in set 3 now that's kind of this is not as clear cut for you anymore to do that. You're gonna have to. I'm going to really, really, really make you try. And it's just like...
Well, that's good. Like I said, I don't think anybody enjoys just a Scarbrand meta.
No, I think... I just don't think... I think he's good. I think he's... like I said, I think he's good. I just don't think he's the balls anymore. I don't think he's the thing anymore. I just think he's a decent chaos aggro deck now.
Yeah, I think everything it looks like has been a little bit more fair now. Right,
Yeah.
out of the last couple days, it seems like everything's sort of on par with each other.
I mean, we can find stuff out really quick now since we've got the app.
Yeah,
And I think now there is decks that it's decent. I think we've got decent decks, not bust decks. And there's a lot of decent decks have now came out that has nothing to do with Scarbrand.
it's true.
He's the 11 points is. It really does make you. It takes a lot of champions you would have had out of the picture now. Because if you're going to put in anything that's, like I said before, if you're going to put in anything that kind of just goes, well, shall I bolster up this this lack of card draw I'm going to gain now. Shall I bolster this up with some other cards to help that? It just goes, it honestly immediately just goes, it's just not the same anymore. It's just not the same anymore. So yeah, we'll move on. But that's
Okay.
that's what I honestly think. Still in
I think
testing.
we're mostly in agreement.
Yeah. He's not bust anymore, but still good.
Right.
Yeah. And the next change they did, which is shock. I'm really happy with it though, but massive shock is Drycha. So she was, whenever you discard one or more card from another effect, but it basically didn't have the bit controlled by this champion. It said whenever you discard one or more cards from another effect, you may discard an additional card to deal 3 damage to your opponent. But now they've added in the controlled by this champion, so she needs to discard a card, and then that's what triggers her ability. So yeah, basically everyone now thinks she's dead in the water, from what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, I'll wait for you to finish. I have some issues with this one, but I'll let you start, and then I'll let you know what I think.
Okay, the big question is, before I think I got a question. I don't know. Maybe it's fair to say this, but the question I want to ask you is, what? Despite the fact that she's been changed, if she never got changed, would that be okay?
No, I think that something needed to be done with Sylvaneth. I don't necessarily know if it should have been Drika that got hurt, like hit.
Okay,
Right? So like the discard mechanic maybe could have been looked at. Maybe Primal Terror could have been looked at. My only issue with them hitting Drika with only cards that she controls is that it's so limited now to what you can do. Like, so before we all agree that like Drika with Primal Terror and all that stuff, it was very good. It's still, but the problem is it's still lost to Chaos, right? So like Chaos was like as good as
sometimes. But then
right. I
chaos,
mean,
but it's actually hard to say because chaos was in also the bonkers
well,
zone.
right.
So I honestly I've actually played some games where I didn't play the bonkers card against her. I didn't actually stand too much. It was a bit more of a fairer game, but it still very much felt like, no, this is dumb. This is not.
Well, right. But I think a lot of that had to do with, the fact that most people that I saw run this deck were running Draco with Lord Verdant and then,
Yeah,
whatever, and then they were doing the Primal Terror nonsense.
yeah.
I mean, an easy change that I think might have been effective is raise Draco's cost to 13 or 14 so you can't pair him with another wizard. That way you can't play Primal Terror, right? And I know you made the argument that the deck that I was running that didn't have the wizard was also doing a lot of damage, which is fine, but obviously it's not doing the same amount of damage as with Primal Terror. I think they could have gone a different way. I think my fear, which I haven't played tested yet, so I can't say for sure, but my fear is that she's so unplayable now that Order is going to go right back to being on the bottom of the meta where it's always been since this game has first come out. And it's just going to stay there again until next step because they hit Drika too hard. I think they could have done different things.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, I think that she has been whacked down to a point where I think maybe her points cost is a bit too high for what she does.
Yeah, I also agree with that too.
I think her point cost is too high for what she does, but I also like what they've done to her because I think they kind of her ability is kind of always going to happen, and I think they maybe future proofed her for new releases coming out in the future because sometimes it's not always about what we see right now. We live in right now, but sometimes it's something that's going to come out later on. There may be just that one more card that she could have, but it will just go, this is way too much. I always thought it was too much anyway, but now we're gonna overdo it because there's gonna still be some more Sylvaneth cards, I assume, for set 4.
Yeah.
And then it's just like more discard, right? More is more of that. It's going to be more, but different versions of that, and more benefits for that. And it's just another thing of going, here's some more reasons why she's just going to go bonkers. Now, this is the thing. She was very comparable to what everyone was trying to work with when Chaos was with the snail and that exceedingly fast first turn, and she was able to still really hold her own. I just think that she would have just been if she was not looked at, she would have just hugely dominated absolutely everything.
I agree. I agree that if Sylvaneth wasn't looked at, then especially Draika decks, then they would have ran the format after Chaos. I just don't, like I said, I don't agree with how they nerfed her.
It's kind of weird, really, because like I said, I think we're sort of hopping back a little bit now to I feel it's the ability damage or the unit damage. And maybe Sylvaneth. I'll probably say this. I think since Drycha got nerfed, I think Sylvaneth have gone down into the okay.
They're where Stormcast is at this point. Because think about it, like, even I think when I was speaking to Jacob,
yeah,
he specifically said, like, they all can't be competitive decks. When I brought up like Durthu and I brought up like Alariel, they weren't made to be competitive, right? But he said Draco was made to be competitive. He saw that he thought Draco was going to be the best deck when I asked him. So now that Draco got hit and he wasn't expecting Durthu and Alariel to be competitive, they don't have anybody now.
Well,
I mean, you can play it. I mean, they're not terrible decks, but on a competitive level, I just don't see it. Like Draco was the competitive deck, and they just hit Draco. So